So welcome everyone to this EU cluster talk on Clusters4NEB. That's the new European Bauhaus and sustainable construction. The new European Bauhaus is, people call it the soul of the Green Deal, combining design, skills, research and innovation, funding to make buildings safer, greener, and housing fairer. Maybe we can put up, Roxanne, you can put up the picture of what Bauhaus used to look like. Bauhaus design, and still does in Dessau, that in the 1920s and 30s, this was a kind of a functionalism combining art and design, art, architecture, interior design, the sleek lines of Walter Gropius. You can see that building. That was like the headquarters in Dessau in Eastern Germany. And of course, Mies van der Rohe, that comes to mind as well. So combining that with the Green Deal. And that is the soul of the Green Deal, is new European Bauhaus. This is the latest EU Clusters talk, organized by the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, ECCP, involving 1,500 organizations on behalf of DG GROW at the European Commission. Shall we look at the agenda? We're going to be talking news, and then from the European Commission, we'll hear about this new European Bauhaus. We'll have Slido questions with you and a panel discussion, including lots of people who are involved in cluster activity on the new European Bauhaus, and you. We want to get you involved as much as possible. We'll also be talking funding opportunities. On tech tips, keep in mind you can send your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom. Think about that Slido. We want to get you involved in answering those Slido questions. Hashtag EU Clusters Talks is the hashtag if you hear anything great to cast wider. And this will be recorded for playback. You can also see the slides subsequently because there will be a lot of slides with information, some especially from the Commission, that you'll want to take a look at, also on the news. So let's see, let's go to the news at this point. The news from Nina Hoffman, team member of the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Nina, please.
Many thanks, Chris, and good morning to all of you. Happy to see you this morning to talk about new European Bauhaus. But before we get into the topics, we also from the ECCP have some interesting news to share. First, there is the save the date for the next European Cluster Conference. This will take place on the 7th and 8th of May next year in Brussels. So please mark already your calendars, pencil it in. There will be panel discussions awaiting you, parallel sessions, workshops, matchmaking, site visits, and initial admissions. So a lot of topics, a lot of people to meet, and a lot of networking to do. And regarding those topics and the program, we would also already tease that now during November, there will be a call for submission of topics and speaker ideas for the program. So keep an eye out for this on the ECCP, where it's published. And this is a chance for you to also get involved in the design of the program with your ideas of the next European Cluster Conference. We also invite you to take part in the next Cluster Booster Academy. This is an annual event designed to capacitate cluster managers. Up to 50 can participate in this event. And it will be a 3-day online training, which will take part at the end of January next year, and a 2-day in-person training session mid-March. This time it will take place in Sofia in Bulgaria. And this is basically a training for cluster managers to enhance the skills and to boost their capacities, as it says in the name. So if you want to be part of this next year's Booster Academy, you can already apply now for this. Look for the link in the chat and fill in your application. There's also updates on the Eurocluster activities. As you know, the Euroclusters are cross-sectoral and trans-European strategic initiatives of industrial clusters with other economic actors to provide financial support for SMEs for innovation, for the adoption of technologies and processes for training and internationalization. And in the new section on the ECCP, there are new articles on call results, so you can read about which kind of SMEs and projects are being funded, under which topics. And also there are webinar recordings, materials, and also calls for expression of interest, looking for experts in different fields. So
That's why it's good to be
these,
registered on the cluster, the ECCP platform, right? That way you
exactly.
keep
So you
updated with that.
can read the news, look at the material, and to also get inspired for your next actions.
Yep.
If you want to make a contribution to a public consultation, you can do this on reporting requirements to reduce the administrative burden of businesses and member states, as the Commission is looking for feedback on which of their reporting requirements are most burdensome for you in terms of time, in terms of costs associated with that, and also the difficulty in meeting requirements. And you can also make suggestions for rationalization, modernization, optimization, all until the end of November via the Have Your Say. I believe the consultation is called Simplify, and you can click on the link in the chat that will lead you to this consultation. But of course, very valuable to also have feedback from clusters and cluster stakeholders on this. Then there are two Clusters4NEB regions that we would like to invite you to for the rest of the year. One is taking place in Iași in Romania on the 21st until the 23rd of November, and the other one in Krakow in Poland on the 11th and 12th of December. Today and tomorrow there's a Clusters4NEB regions ongoing in Düsseldorf, so there will be also some live tweeting on X and on LinkedIn, so have a look out to see what these events are all about. And if you're interested, come to these events to see and discuss how clusters can collaborate with regional stakeholders on the industrial development of regions. And also in the next days, there will be a new call published to host such Clusters4NEB regions events in your region. There are many regions in Europe that have good potential to discuss the cluster involvement in the industrial development. So if you're interested and get your regional government on board with this, have a look out for the next call that will be published in the next days. And last but not least, we also ask for your feedback on the ECCP services. This is a very quick survey, should not take you more than 5 minutes to answer how useful the services are, what you're using, and what to improve on the ECCP activities. So please, if you have a few minutes to spare, give us some feedback on this as soon as you can. So just click on the link. Maybe after this talk, you can already fill it. And with that, I close and hand over back to you, Chris.
Great, Nina. Thank you. In fact, every one of these clusters talks are about feedback too. We're giving out information, but we're also asking you to give your feedback on how things are working and how we can improve that cluster collaboration. Yes, you know, on New European Bauhaus, we're going to hear now from the European Commission. I spent a lot of time in the European Parliament, and I spoke with Christian Ehler, who's the European Parliament rapporteur on the report on New European Bauhaus, and he was very excited about it. He says, in fact, in his report, he says we want to give citizens an active role in shaping their environment, and it draws on cultural and urban innovation to build a sustainable and resilient society, mixing culture, art, design, green, making it the soul of the Green Deal. And we want to hear more about that from Vera Windhagen, who's Deputy Head of Unit now at the Joint Research Center. Congratulations, Vera. You are the new Deputy Head of Unit at the Joint Research Center. That's kind of like the think tank at the European Commission. And you're a graduate in industrial design, so you're a perfect person to talk about New European Bauhaus.
Yeah, thank you. And it's for the people, the architects, the designers, the old Bauhaus was always in our educational program. So when we heard that Ursula von der Leyen mentioned it for the first time in her State of the Union speech, I think 3 years ago, we were all very excited. And I think it's great that they used this, that the Commission used this Bauhaus as a metaphor for change, because
Yeah.
The old Bauhaus had such an influence on how we shape our environment that we can use this type of paradigm shift again. So that's
Exactly.
where the name comes from the people who don't know. It's a huge influential art, design, architecture movement. And what we say is that we would like this new movement to bring sustainable, inclusive, and beautiful solutions for our living environment. I will spam everybody with a lot of slides. I see that the camera is, yeah, and now I'm gone or not. Yeah, well, let's see how it works. It's the Zoom is always a bit tricky.
You're back. There you're back. Okay.
Good.
All right, Vera.
I'll try to keep speaking even though the camera will drop, but let's see how it
keep
goes.
going. Yeah.
So I will spam you with a lot of slides. I will do it quite quickly. I will say a little bit about what the European Bauhaus is, what the kind of actions are that we do, and then what our current focus will be in the future. And also, I also have a call for action. So for people to also contribute to the European Bauhaus. Okay, please, next slide. I think I already said it. It was first mentioned 3 years ago by Ursula von der Leyen, and that already gave a huge response in the people who already knew what the old Bauhaus was. So just as inside the European Commission, when we heard also in the design architecture community that she mentioned something like Bauhaus, it sparked, it made a spark. So we've been here for about 3 years now. And if you go to the next slide, we started very broad. We actually said, how would you like to live together in the future with a sustainability angle, but also with an inclusive angle? And then, for example, the beauty part sparked a lot of interest because beauty never comes up in a policy environment. So we are an initiative. We're not a program, but we work with 9 different programs inside the European Commission to create an innovation ecosystem, test projects, show what's going on for this sustainable, inclusive, and beautiful future. And as you said, Chris, and then you can go to the next slide, we are a little bit what they call the soul of the Green Deal, because we would like to bring the green transition closer to citizens and also look at what is needed, for example, in behavioral change. So not just with legislation or with policy, but also how can we include people? And that's how we work in general. So we work directly with citizens, with people on the ground, with NGOs, with architects, everybody who would like to work with us to come up with solutions to bring these green transitions closer to people. Yeah, and you can go to the next slide. How do we do it? So as I said, we work with 9 different funding programs coming from DG GROW, but also from the research side of the European Commission. We work very closely with member states. We work with regional governments. So we fund projects or help projects to get funding. In their local environment, we give a yearly prize. We have a bi-yearly festival. So we recognize good projects as they are already out there, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We know that many people are already working on integrating these 3 different values of beautiful, sustainable, and together. And we put in the spotlight the good projects that are out there. So we have a huge Instagram page where we showcase what's going on and that it's actually possible. And in the end, we try to give everybody hope and see that we can all do it, and you can also do it. If you go to the next slide. So we started in a very open way. As I said, you can follow us in many different channels, and this really grew into a big movement. And we started with a co-design phase, but we keep co-designing with our followers, with the audience, with the people who also built the project. And how you can see, so in this beginning, we did a big outreach. We adopted the themes that people came up with. So when we said, how would you like to live together? 4 themes rose. And if you go to the next slide, you will see them. So people said, if we talk about living together, you have to focus on reconnecting to nature, because we are very distant from the natural environment, both in crazy things like giving rights to nature in a local environment, but also the greening of public spaces. We need to regain a sense of belonging. We need to prioritize certain places over others that really need help. And I think in this case, that's important. Our more professional community said you need a thorough thinking of the industrial ecosystems that we have. If you go to the next slide. This led to a very diverse community. We have almost 700 official partners that not only endorse the message of the European Bauhaus, but also replicate what we do. So people who set up their own actions, their own workshops, their own projects. We have 19 members of a high-level roundtable who are our ambassadors. So in almost each member state, we have a high-level roundtable member. And then we integrate also the people who are in the winners of the calls that we have done so far. And we have had already about 200 million in calls in the last 3 years. So there's a huge group of people who are experimenting and learning together. And all these people are part of this broad European Bauhaus communities. So this is also a little bit an invitation for you all. If you are not a member yet, you can join us and work together. There's something for companies, there's something for NGOs, for local governments, so it's a very diverse group, and it's also meant to work together in a very diverse environment. So now something more concrete. What do you end up with? If you go to the next slide, I just very quickly show you a glimpse of what kind of projects we have funded. And it's ongoing projects. So it's not something that is finished yet, but it gives a first glimpse of what we do and what we are looking for. So this is one of the lighthouse demonstrators. It's one of the projects that received 5 million euros in Munich to develop a completely different typology of circular and inclusive neighborhoods. Then the next one is a project in also again different locations of a lighthouse demonstrator project, where they try to show how to make circularity irresistible. So they're really looking at the behavioral change aspect, mainly of a change in the built environment. And then the third one is really more about the social innovation side, social innovation in a neighborhood, and trying to look at elderly people and transforming social housing districts into smart neighborhoods. So this is what is ongoing. I cannot show you more than this because the projects, of course, take a long time because they're in the built environment. So this is the kind of themes that you could look at if you talk about the bigger changes in the built environment. We don't only fund built environment. If you go to the next slide, you see one of the winners of the European Bauhaus Prize of, I think, 2 years ago. This is a really nice project in Portugal where they recycled, it's more a systemic change. So they recycled toys together with a big group of municipalities and schools to turn them into new toys. And it's a distributed system. So it's not one factory that changes the toys, but they made it into a set of small factories where people could themselves help to create new products out of these toys. And by that, they create a lot of awareness on recycling, on circularity, on what is needed. So that's the kind of projects that receive a prize and that we also put in the spotlight. And that's not all. We also in the European Commission ourselves try to change what we do. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see, as Chris said, we are in the think tank of the European Commission, or all the scientists in the European Commission. And we are in 5 different locations throughout Europe. One of our locations is in Sevilla. And this is will be the new building completely in European Bauhaus style. So it's built with a local tradition, traditional in the way it looks, but it's built up all out of solar panels. And the design is made by Björke Ingels, a large architecture company. And the idea is that the building becomes a circularity factory, and it should have earned itself back after 18 years. So that's very fast. So this is one of our biggest own projects, but we also do a lot of actions within the different buildings of the European Commission. So also all our colleagues are infected with the European Bauhaus vibe. Okay. Enough about that. You can check out all our projects in the dashboard that we have on our website, and you can see there what kind of projects we have, what kind of projects we funded, but also where the links are in your member state, your country. So you can see also how to contact people if you would like to. Okay, and if you go to the next slide, you can also propose your own projects if you become a member of our community. So this is a summary of some of our projects that we work with. It goes through to more technical topics. So how can we improve regulation, or how can we define beauty in a practical way? Into a label, for example. But we also have how do we work with specific areas, like mountain areas in an European Bauhaus way, or how do we work with southern regions that have a lot of drought or forest fires? How do we deal with those kind of circumstances? So this is a little bit the learning lab where our community works together. I'll try to speed up a little bit, Chris, because okay, good. If you go to the next slide, you see what we did together with our community. We built a compass. So this is a testing tool, how you can practically use the 3 European Bauhaus values in your project. And we did that together with our community. So together we defined, okay, if we talk about inclusive, sustainable, and beautiful project, what do we then mean? And you can look up the compass on our website and actually download it and use it yourself. That's one of the testing tools. If you go to the next slide, one of the other actions that our community came with was 1.5 years ago when this phase of the war in Ukraine started. They said, you have so many architects, companies in your network, you have to do something for Ukraine, and you have to start already thinking about the reconstruction. So one of our angles is now really focused already on the reconstruction of Ukraine. I will not go into it, but we have capacity building webinars. We have many different actions ongoing already to think ahead and imagine what Ukraine could look like, but also to give emergency assistance to what is needed now in the rebuilding of the country. And if you go to the next slide, I'm almost done. Some projects need an extra boost. So we also set up some actions like a European Bauhaus Academy, where we invest more in bio-based materials, upskilling for the construction sector on bio-based and circular materials. So we put it in the spotlight, and this is a new project that will start very soon. Okay, that's what we do so far. So we are very broad. We work with 9 different programs. We have a lot of different actions, but we see, as with the European Bauhaus Academy, that some actions need a bigger boost. And that's why we propose for the next 10 years an European Bauhaus mission. And that is to specifically focus more on the built environment, on neighborhoods, and on one hand, speed up the circular transition and even go to regenerative designs. So using buildings, for example, as carbon sinks, and again, focus on citizens, on neighborhoods, and help them to develop their own environment in a greener and more sustainable way. So it has these 2 angles of circularity in the construction sector, but also involving neighbors to develop their own local environment and their local democracy. And if you go to the next slide, because what we see, it's a 10-year program. And what we see is that the investments in the construction sector, in the research part of the construction sector, are lagging behind. So we have a lot of investments. I know that, for example, in China, 15% of the investment in R&I go into the construction sector. We are lagging behind, so we want to increase that, and we want to give that a big push so that we can go faster. So that's our next step, to propose this European Bauhaus mission, a 10-year program. And as I explained in all my previous slides, you can be a part of this. If you go to the next slide, you see these are the three research and innovation components that we heard that we need to focus on so far. But hereby, I invite you also to become a part of this. So if you would like to give us tips or topics or ongoing research that you think should be integrated into this 10-year plan, this is your chance. So please contact us. I just explained to you, we have Instagram, we have a LinkedIn page, we have a very broad website. There are many ways to get in touch with us. We have surveys there. So if you want to put your comments there, please do. And I'm also looking very much forward to what the panel will say. And I hope that they will mention something about this. And that's about it. Yes, this is the ways to get in touch with us. I hope it's enough. I hope it was not too much, but it gives a bit an overview.
That was really great. Thank you very much, Vera. Really appreciate it. That does give you the sort of background and enlightenment we need to talk about this with our panel. Before we get to that, let's do a quick Slido. If everybody can get their Slido ready. There you have either you can key that in on slido.com, or you've got that QR code there, and get connected on that. So we can go to the questions. And there is question number 1. How much is eco-design important in your cluster? What Vera just talked about, how much are you integrating all of that into your cluster? How important is that to you? Obviously, a lot of people are already involved, and that's why you're connected. But maybe there are others that are a bit skeptical and wondering, and how can we make this work in our cluster? So, okay, so about half of you, crucial. Okay, so it plays a very important role. In any case, that's a good. That's something good to talk about. Let's go to the next question. How much does or could New European Bauhaus support what your cluster does? Because as Vera was talking about, there are ways the EU supports those efforts, and it's a two-way street, right? It's to get citizens involved, get businesses involved, innovators involved, marrying that idea of design and eco together. A lot. Great. Well, we will be talking about that as well, how much support there is. We'll be hearing among our panel about that. Yeah. So why can this initiative support your work? And this is a word cloud. Maybe 2 words, 1 word, 2 words, 3 words. There must be lots of reasons, because there are lots of aspects to the new European Bauhaus. That's the whole idea of marrying all these different things together. Obviously, yes, funding. That's interesting. That's how you make it work. Yep, value creation. Yeah, there has to be a motive, a profit motive, and funding to drive that. Connecting initiative, the initiatived, inspiration. Yeah, yeah. Circular economy. Inspiration, yeah, concept spaces, relationships, a lot of different aspects there, but funding seems to be the most important thing. Obviously, that's what makes it all go round, right? With ideas, with inspiration. Very good. That's great. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. As we're looking at that, I'm going to introduce the panel. And the panel includes Anna Rosenqvist, CEO of the Interior Clusters Sweden, Jorge Lopez Conde, architect of Clusters4NEB. You can all put your cameras on now, the panel. Marta Krakowiak, project manager, Elka European Lighting Cluster Alliance, and Pauline Bruges, project manager of CAP Construction. Welcome to you all. Let me start with Jorge. You're an architect, deployment chief manager at Clusters4NEB. What's the role of the role of clusters and your clusters in the new European Bauhaus? I see that you're also a member of the expert network Los Cientos de Cotec, so putting together the ideas people in making this happen, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is a very, very important question for us, and we try to answer it every day. And the idea is position ourselves to be able to lead the great transformation related to the new Green Deal, of course, and in different scales, to the integration of Ukraine in the European Union, for example, no, and its reconstruction with the new construction standards, or applying the new European Bauhaus concepts, for example. But at the beginning of it all, I would like to remember the first words of Ursula von der Leyen, as Vera says, no, about European Bauhaus in her first presentation of the project in the middle of the pandemic and in the confinement, for example. And she said it is a change in our way of life. It is the construction of examples and models on the new Green Deal. And clusters play a significant role in advancing this initiative in several ways. For example, the collaboration and innovation, the cross-sectorial partnerships, the knowledge transfer from the industry to the society, for example, the regional development in different policies ways, for example, the construction of different pilot projects with the clusters, of course, and the funding and resources, of course, as the people say in the questions, and the networking and policies and the relation between the networking and the society and the policies, and of course the community engagement.
Okay, so you're marrying all that together. Can you give me a concrete example of how you're making that happen on the ground? One project.
We have several projects. For example,
just give me one.
And out of the clusters, at the end, the house made from 100 biomaterials, showcased at the Dutch weekend in Netherlands 2 years ago, for example, is made from bio-based creations. This is a super good example.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on to Anna Rosenqvist, CEO, Interior Cluster Sweden. But before I go to Anna, please put your questions in the Q&A, and also keep an eye on the chat. You can see those two buttons at the bottom, and keep them coming, because that's what also makes this this discussion even richer, is thanks to those who put those in. Anna, please. So you work to generate growth, profitability, employment within the Swedish furniture industry. And so how might the EU's new European Bauhaus initiative be connected to the furniture and interior design industry?
Well, I think Vera's presentation today has really given me a new insight, and I feel like have found my, in some kind of way, found the destination. Because it has been very much about, for me, understanding the political instruments, all the legislations and documents and papers.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to find the position for where does furniture and interior design really fit into. Sometimes we're destined to cultural industry. Sometimes it's textile and fashion, and sometimes construction. And I can feel at home everywhere. But this putting European Bauhaus as the heart and soul of the Green Deal has really helped me to say, wonderful, because now it makes my picture complete in a way, the bigger picture that we're working for. So thank you very much, Vera.
And so one example of your projects is the NBA, the Nordic Blockchain Alliance.
Yep.
What does that do? That
initiative came out of the eco design legislation that will end up in a legislation called digital products passports, which means that all products put on the market, almost all, will need to have some kind of passport in the future.
Right.
So by trying to understand that, we gathered in the Nordic countries, and actually, so that was Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. And we have done activities, we have shared knowledge, and I'm very action-oriented when I'm in projects. So I want to do things. So I wanted to end up in showcasing something so that others can learn from. And so that's actually what we did.
Yeah, so I have a product that has this digital product passport. How does that help me sell that product? How does that work?
Yeah, if Nina can share the slide or the picture that I've created for today, it's just a very, very brief way of showing what it could look like. So this is examples. If I'm supplying, producing and putting this Bruno chair on the market, I in the future need to know where all the parts comes from, where it has been produced, who has produced it. So it's a chain of information. So and that information comes from sources, from sub-suppliers.
That it was created sustainably, fairly, right? So that the consumer knows where it came from.
That's the whole point. So the digital product passport it's about traceability and honesty and transparency. So all suppliers in the value chain needs to explain what they have done and what materials they have used. So if you want to, you can see 2 QR codes on the right-hand side, and if you use them, you will end up with a demo or pilot of 2 different chairs actually. But this is what we have been doing, and we showcased 5 products physically with different QR codes. You can also, it doesn't need to be a QR code. It could also be a RFI if you know what that is. But the thing is that the thing needs to be permanently put on a product, and that could be a challenge, especially on high level of design, when the designers will say, no way, no, you don't put anything on my product. So it has to be done in a clever way also for the future.
Yeah. And this is a Nordic Blockchain Alliance. So it's only in the Nordic countries, or has this gone beyond the Nordic countries?
So this project was done in the Nordics, but I'm sure other countries has done things as well. It's just that I'm not aware. And there are a lot of initiatives going on, but as soon as you find a technology provider, you might feel lost and trapped if you're a furniture producer, because this is when we're merging furniture and tech companies, and they seem to talk different languages. So there's a gap in between what this is all about.
Okay, that's great. Let me we'll come back to that later. Marta Krakowiak, dzień dobry, project manager, ELKA European Lighting Cluster Alliance. Welcome, witamy. Yeah, what about projects? You have, there's quite a list of projects I looked at that you're working on.
Yeah,
Where do we start? Ecoslight, or where do you?
No, I
What do
will
you think?
start from the principle, because as Anna said that a European Bauhaus, the European Bauhaus initiative helped her to find the insight and to help her to understand where the furniture can be positioned. In our case, as we are representing the lighting industry, the European Bauhaus, let's say, confirmed the importance of our sector, because starting from the obvious statement, we cannot live without light.
Yeah.
Or we are, if we are considering the natural light or artificial light for indoors or outdoors, for any needs that we are doing, for any activity, we need the light.
And New European Bauhaus sheds light on that, or gives more light to that.
Exactly. So we are in the middle, and with our activities, with our initiatives, with our projects, we concentrate our forces on improving the lighting conditions that in some way can help the living of people, respecting the nature and biodiversity, and also offering or helping the people with special needs to live better, safer, and more inclusive way.
And so is Shape the Light an example of that?
Shape the
Because
Light,
you just signed a grant agreement on that.
Yes, Shape the Light is the totally new initiative that Elka have promoted, where our cluster members, because we are a meta cluster, so our lighting clusters are engaged, and we will start this project from January. And this is the great, let's say, collaboration between the lighting industry and the art.
Creative
design.
Europe is the Creative Europe program, I think, is part of that.
Yes, it's the Creative Europe program.
Yeah.
And it will help the companies with the collaboration in the co-creation processes with lighting designers, but also with artists, to create new products from indoor and outdoor, considering specific needs of people in the nature of the environments that are addressed to. So we will, of course, ensure that to provide the beautiful projects like the European Bauhaus is, let's say, focusing on, but also sustainable and inclusive, because we have people with different needs, and lighting can help them to exist in a better way. Yeah. So this is the project that will provide this collaboration that will end up with new products, lighting products. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm getting more questions coming in, so I want to get to those as soon as I can, but we'll obviously come back to you. Pauline Bruges, project manager, Cap Construction. That's a Walloon cluster in southern Belgium. You bring together all types of construction actors, architects, design offices, contractors, installers, producers. How do you help to make them more competitive? How do you deal with that? There is a competitive environment out there. How do you facilitate that to make them more competitive and resilient?
Well, first we connect them because they are working through different federations, and a long time ago those federations came together and said, okay, we need our different professional disciplines to communicate, and we need various stakeholders of the entire construction value chain, from the designer, the creative minds, the architects, to the building managers, to the products providers and manufacturers, to discuss and to connect around clear strategic axis. And actually, the new European Bauhaus initiative is confirming the strategy that the cluster set itself up back in 2019. So we are quite glad that it kind of it's kind of momentum for us, because it's finally coming together around key objectives that we set up a while ago. But it's confirming that this strategy was the right one, and that we want to continue on to lead projects and to lead our members towards these goals. So we are there to draw attention to the initiative, to bring the stakeholders together around the different pilot projects, also to share experiences today with other regional clusters, and to grow the network.
Okay, good. So can you share with us one of those projects that you're working on where you're bringing people together to make them more competitive?
Yeah, the idea, for example, is to encourage digital transition, and one project we're working on is dedicated to the demystification of XR and virtual reality technologies. And for example, we develop proof of concepts that are directly applicable to the company's needs, that are aligned with the company's needs, where manufacturers, for example, can visualize certain aspects, counting points, etc., to make sure that they can improve their processes and therefore bring products to the construction sites that are really aligned with the needs of the construction companies, or even back to the design as well, to architects in the first place.
Right.
That's one example. Another great project is about adapting buildings to evolving needs. So be it from the youth to families to anticipating needs of the senior people, because we know we're growing old most of the time, especially in Wallonia, in the same building. So we need to adapt those buildings to evolving types of setup, family setup, growing old, etc. So we conduct a project in this work, in this area of work, highlighting great solutions, developing guiding tools and solutions in that frame.
Okay, that's great. Let's start. I want to come back to all of you, but let's start with some of the Q&A. For those of you watching, please put in your questions into the Q&A button at the bottom. Also keep an eye on the chat, because there's also lots of good information, links and comments from everybody, the speakers and you. So if we can keep that. And we also want to get feedback as well. That's very important. On how things are working and how things can work better. Dimitri asks, Anna, can you explain the benefits of using blockchain for the chair example? Why is tracking origins in Excel insufficient? Anna.
Yeah. The point with having it digital, it is because it's going to be shared and public. So the Excel sheet you have is very good for yourself and your home environment, for your home environment. But it's the bigger picture. It's for everybody to share with everybody, and that's why it needs to be locked in different blocks. So so that's the whole point.
Okay, good. And then also that idea, I think, we're seeing in other products as well, the labeling is important, but also there's the use of QR codes for people to see how their product was made. There's a lot of consumer demand about that, right?
Yeah, and I also say that this could become an advantage for a company if you want to strengthen your sustainability identity, the values within your business, because it's about honesty and traceability, and to make sure that you use resources from Mother Earth in a good and proper way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, one more on the digital passport from Eva. Regarding the digital passport initiative, is there some form of verification of the product details available through the passport? I guess that's the idea, isn't it? Or is it an honor system? Also, is it an optional program, or is the idea that all products sold in the Nordic countries are required to participate? No, I don't think they're required, right? Yet. There's no law on this yet.
There will be. There will be a law. That's the thing. So it's for everybody, and it's the legislation is not out there yet. So what we are doing is that we are preparing our member companies to be able to be on board when the legislation comes. It's the legislation. It's an EU legislation, and it starts with batteries. And we don't really know if that's next year or it's 2025. And then it will be textiles. And after that, it will definitely be furniture.
Very interesting. I'd like to get some feedback from the other speakers on that, because what about that concept and about taking it to a European level? Would somebody like to jump first? Maybe Jorge, I think I saw you kind of nodding a lot on this.
I think this type of project is very, very relevant in different ways. For example, and two important things here is the concept of the certification and the concept of the levels in the European Union related to the LEED, to the BREEAM, to other certifications, in order to the ESG funds, for example, not and in order to confirm the change of the way in our form of life, for example, no, and it's very related to all of these things, and this is relevant in the this aspect, for example.
Yeah. Anybody else? Pauline, you're nodding as well. I think would that help you in what you're doing in grouping people together?
Yes, we really need guiding principles on such as passport and making sure that we ensure traceability of the different components of a building. And this is especially the case if we want to encourage circular buildings with the reuse of materials. So you would take some materials from one building and reuse it in another one. We really need to make sure that we can trust that material. So that's very relevant for that part. On another hand, for startups or small companies that want to develop their own products, we also need to make sure that we improve the financial access to environmental assessment tools for innovative materials, because we need to encourage innovation, but to do that we would need to make sure that small entities are able to follow the path of these labeling, which usually are quite costly.
Right. I see Anna raising her hand. You can see it, all of you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a raise your hand thing. And that's not only for the speakers, it's also for anyone watching if you want to directly ask a question on camera. Anna, you raised your hand.
I wasn't really prepared to explain the legislation as such, but it's linked to the ESPR. So if you Google ESPR, you will find out everything about what we have in front of us.
What does that stand for, ESPR?
That's
okay.
Eco-Design
I got you
Product Requirement. Yeah, that's the point.
Okay.
So if you go ESPR, and then Digital Products Passport.
Okay, so that explains it too. Well, another aspect of this is interesting, because in our conversation last week, or earlier this week, ahead of this, was that some of you met together at a networking event in Sweden, Lund, Sweden. So you actually have this community of clusters. You have clusters, but it's clusters working with clusters. Who wants to talk about that? How you met together and made something happen? I think you have a joint bid for something, right?
Marta,
who was it?
I can start. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Anna started everything.
Yeah. Well, it was actually a cluster lab in Lund earlier this year, and I decided to, after being in the Cluster Boost Academy, I decided to go brave, and so I wrote an initiative to that cluster lab. And Jorge, obviously, we had never met before, but he saw that, and then he came to Lund, and he brought with him his ideas from his point about architecture and European Bauhaus. So we teamed up, and we decided let's continue to discuss this. And now we're actually have built a consortium: Sweden, Romania, and Spain, and
really
furniture, architecture, and also tech cluster, a Spanish tech cluster. And to expand it even more, we connected with Marta, and so she joined, being a Eurocluster for lighting. So feel free to connect and hook on for that.
That's really great, and that shows sort of the payoff for those events that Nina talks about. That it really is worth going to those events. Marta, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just want to connecting the dots. So except this joint collaboration that we have, we are leading one of the Euroclusters projects, we are also supporting one of the companies of Anna in developing the digital passport with our Cascade funding. So it's everything that working together brings some very concrete results. And this is also very connected to the pillar of the European Bauhaus, because working together, understand our needs and verify how we can contribute, because we are no competitors. We can be the collaborating partners here.
Absolutely.
And this is something that will bring additional value to all the community. So not only to our small garden that we are carrying on, but also to the biggest territory or at the European level.
Sure.
I just want to jump very fast, because what Anna was saying about the regulations, with all these activities that we are promoting as clusters, I think that we need, or we are focusing also to prepare companies to be ready for what is coming on and to provide the product solutions and be active on the market and not be surprised that something from one day to another is becoming a standard or regulation and they are not eligible, they are not compatible anymore. So this is something that we are doing with activities that Anna is doing with the digital passport. We have started with the eco-design regulation that is mandatory for the lighting sector already 5-7 years ago, because we knew that it will become a law.
Yeah, because a lot of individual companies are not aware of that, right? You're raising awareness about those things. Anticipating.
Yes.
That's right.
So the European Bauhaus, the Green Deal, the digital passports, whatever, is something that are indicating the new standards or the new obligations that will become law, but the companies cannot realize it 1 hour before. They need time to do it. And clusters, I think, are the great opportunity to help them also with the fundings, guidelines, and all the other initiatives at the European level.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Jorge, I guess you want to add to that. You raised your hand there. So it must have been worth the trip from Spain going up to Lund, Sweden. You thought, well, this was worth the trip, right?
Amazing, yeah. But in summary, this we are talking about open innovation tools, for example, no, like living labs, sandboxes, hubs, and collaborative platforms. No, at the end, no, and this is for me are essential for driving innovation, the collaboration and experimentation in the clusters ecosystem. No, and we are talking about this. No, this is very relevant. No.
Yeah,
can foster the relationship between clusters, the industry, the transition pathways of construction, for example, the new European Bauhaus, no, and the new Green Deal, of course.
Yeah. I want to go to Pauline on that, with the point that Marta made about this sort of early warning system that the clusters can be for a lot of individual actors in a project. Can you give an example of that? How that has worked? How you have helped?
Yeah, it's a key role I think we have, because businesses are very busy. They have their daily business to run. Construction sector is a very fragmented sector, especially in Wallonia. So we have very small companies, sometimes 1-2 people max, going on construction sites, so they cannot be informed about everything that's going on. The information flow already for a citizen, it's gigantic.
Sure.
So you need to sort out the information that is relevant for the different types of stakeholders and point them out the way to go and support them in providing them the enabling tools to go further and not to be left out, because it can go quite fast to be left out of the market and not to provide solutions that are fitting anymore. So we need to make sure that we're not leaving people out of the way.
Right. What about let's do a bit of a reality check now and talk about the challenges. Marta, you want to kick that off? What challenges are there to making new European Bauhaus a reality and using the potential that it offers to make these projects happen on the ground? Maybe part of it is this concept that for some people it's hard to get their heads around. Maybe you can talk about the challenges there.
But I think that we are already doing this. So I just think that there is maybe the lack of awareness that some initiatives or project can be considered in the framework of the European Bauhaus. I'm thinking about the lighting sector, because our companies really develop magnificent solutions for the outdoor lighting, great solutions for the indoor lighting. What they need to work on is the importance of the sustainability parts, circularity parts, absolutely not about design.
Yeah.
So this is what we are pushing. We are helping them to understand that being more sustainable, more energy efficient, but in our case, we have the LEID technology, so it's very difficult to be more sustainable than this. But we focus on using, like Anna also highlighted, sustainable materials, checked materials and suppliers, and ensure also afterlife of the project. So to, let's say, ensure the circularity. And we are really, really strongly working on the digitalization and the technologies to be incorporated into the manufacturing process of the small companies, because like it's in construction, also in the lighting, there are mainly micro companies, artisans, that they make great things, but still like this. And they risk to not only not be able to sell them anymore on the project, they are not complying with some rules and the legislation, but also to be left behind because somebody can do something very similar using the advanced technologies. And this is something where we are focusing. So we are not really aware, let's say, we are not worrying about the medium companies, the large companies. They understood perfectly how they can use the European Bauhaus, how they can contribute to it. We are focusing on the artisans right now and the very micro small companies, because they are the core of the industry. And very often they can be very active contributors, but they need our support to understand how and in which way and with which funds. And
can I ask you about, I mean, putting that in practice on your culture lights project?
Yeah, we have the cultural lights
bridging
project.
Sustainable lighting and value preservation in cultural buildings.
Yes.
What are the challenges to that in making that happen?
Legislation. When we are speaking about the cultural heritage sites, historic buildings, patrimony.
It's legislation. I would
it's
think it's like
the
budget.
legislation that it blocks you to do any renovation from the beginning. And we have the project that.
What do you mean by that?
We mean that there are a lot of restrictions to do works on this kind of buildings of sites.
Because it's
because
historically
you need
protected.
to preserve them.
Yeah.
From the other side, some of them needs to be renovated, because if not, they will get ruined, or they are too energy consuming. They are, they are incredibly difficult to maintain.
Yeah.
And
but
the
to
lighting
do that,
and lighting is one of the activities that we are promoting, both indoor but also outdoor, to valorize them. So the biggest now that we are working on, the biggest problem is to work with the policymakers also to understand together what we can do to help you. Because if you are prohibiting me anything, like the very easy thing, the cable using, in the building, historical building, and in our project, we have Greece, Italy, and Poland. So just speaking about Italy and Greece,
three different kinds of regulate.
No, but in Italy, in Greece, it's like almost impossible to do something concretely, because you cannot put, the lamp into the wall that has like 1,000 years. So we need this very concrete approach with the policymakers and companies, installers.
So it's a regulation. It's a regulation.
But the regulation you have to do combining and putting on the table and engaging all the people that are engaged in the work. Because if the policymaker is making a law that is then absolutely impractical, you cannot put it in practice, because this is absolutely a dead law.
Right. So Jorge, I mean, making regulations more flexible is a challenge.
I don't speak about flexible, more operational.
Yeah, exactly. I have here around 8 points relevant to improve this type of policies. And for me, the first point here is integrate policies and regulation. this is a super huge topic here, no? Because foster an integrated policy framework that aligns with the goals of the European Bauhaus or the Green Deal or the ESG taxonomy, ensure that regulations support sustainable construction practices, innovation, and the ESG investing at the end, no? And we need to work to improve this type of
Right.
Yeah.
So that is a barrier that needs to be
maybe
busted
we need
through.
to encourage the policymakers to work closely with the cluster ecosystem, for example, no?
Right. Okay. And challenges, Pauline, any that you can mention? Is that one of them, or is there another one that you can mention?
Yeah, the one that was mentioned by Martin Rohe is very relevant, and I think that we need to support the rolling out of efficient solutions that are found, maybe in one sector that can be rolled out in another one, or in one place then rolled out in another place, without too many difficulties. Because once we find finally a solution to a deadlock situation, we need to be able to roll it out. So that's a challenge, I think. Usually the solutions are really individual and then cannot be extended. Another challenge, of course, it's building and innovating. It's a human adventure. You need people. You need good people to be competitive. So we need the right fit.
Is that a skills gap? Is that what you're talking about?
It's in numbers and it's in skills. It's in both. We need the right fit. So people need to be suitably trained to meet the green and digital transition. We can no longer have young professionals that are completely unaware of BIM or of circular principles. That is not possible today.
Right.
And these aspects need to become part of the basic training in a more in-depth way than it is today. For the curriculum that I saw, they're really not fitting. So each profession along the entire value chain need to know about these principles, and this is a big work that we are also doing with the training institutes and universities, because we realize that many young professionals just had a few hours on BIM or circularity. It's not just a few hours that will make it happen. We need more.
Okay. I need to get to Nina on the funding opportunities, but before let me get from Anna, from you on challenges. If there's one challenge you can mention to what you were talking about. I also have a question for you from Ricardo, who asks, says, really interesting on your initiative here in Galicia. We have an application based on blockchain to connect the forest resource to final product, but without integrating the rest of the actors, carpenters, designers, etc. Only the panel with the forest location of resource. How could you involve the rest of the actors in this initiative? He asks.
Well, if the forest, the forest is interesting to bring to the table, because a challenge in the furniture business is that natural forests they're not renewable forever. So we need to connect. We need to go back to where does the raw material come from? So it is the forest, but my passion is not the forest, it's the timber. So that's where the starting point is for me. But so how can we then utilize the use of timber, and how can we foster and trigger innovations so that we come up with new materials? Because the climate neutral 2050 is there, fossil free materials and so on. So it's not enough just looking at the forest and the products. There's a lot of things that we need to do in between as well.
Yeah. Don't lose the forest for the trees. And that's not, is that your biggest challenge?
At the moment, yes, because I'm in a huge project about forest management, artificial intelligence, and then my role there is to apply and utilize the research into the building and furniture industry, and that's a 6-year-long project based in Lithuania. So for me, the forest and wood is because that's 60-70% of the furniture industry.
Sure, that's exactly, yeah. I have one quick question from Anonymous. Do you think that the laws are the only path to reach sustainability? Don't you think that it increases final prices at the end that doesn't convince people to be sustainable? Is there a way to do it without, without raising prices, I guess that person is asking. Who would want to talk about that?
Well, I can just say, of course, price is always important for the consumer, but
Sure.
I also have to say that fast fashion is nothing that I'm promoting.
Good, excellent, quick answer. Great.
I can add to this only that laws help to standardize some practices. That if we have good laws for the sustainability, circularity, it can help to provide, to, let's say, oblige the majority of companies to comply with this. If it will have the impact on prices in some way, yes, but if it is a standard, then it will become a reality and a normality, let's say, something that we are used to. From the other side, we cannot wait for laws to promote this kind of practices. So we need to be, let's say, also the bottom-up approach. So the companies need to understand that there is the value for them if they are more sustainable.
Yeah, there has to be a carrot for that. They have to recognize that.
I think that there should be both approach. The good laws that standardize some good practices, but also companies need to push to be even better in this and promote new solutions and new operations.
Sure. Pauline, you had something to add. You raised your hand here.
Yeah, just fully supporting what Marta just said, and also adding that we do have low-tech solutions as well, and we should not forget them. Usually,
like low-tech.
Well,
like?
It's always possible to go back to what how people used to build and get inspired. There are ways to build at cheaper prices, and it's also the challenge for social buildings. So it's possible. We have some examples here, and they're quite inspiring.
Fantastic. I think Jorge, you had raised your hand briefly. Did you have anything to add there? You're good. You're good. Okay. Well, great. I think we will wrap this part of it up. Thank you so much. Gracias, Jorge. Tax, Anna. Dziękuję, Marta, and merci, Pauline, to all of you and to all of the questions coming in. Thanks to everybody. And it's not over yet. We go to Nina now to give us the funding opportunities. Thanks to all the speakers. Nina, please.
Many thanks to all the speakers. Very interesting conversation regarding the funding opportunities. There is one call on European Bauhaus that might be interesting for you. It's called Innovative Solutions for Greener and Fairer Ways of Life for Arts and Culture, Architecture Design for All. And this is a Horizon Innovation Action where projects should contribute to innovative solutions validated in pilot trials to demonstrate how strategic investments in the spirit of the new European Bauhaus initiative for cultural heritage and the creative and cultural industries can be successfully realized. It should increase the understanding and visibility of the role of cultural-led innovation, integrating the new European Bauhaus approach, and of course, a wider involvement in social inclusion of citizens. The deadlines for this is the 7th of February next year. You see the topic ID in the screen and the link in the chat. We've been talking about digitalization as well, and there's a call might be interesting for some of the audience here. It's boosting the digital transition of social economy enterprises and SMEs. So here we're talking about to increase the amount of digitally skilled workers in SMEs of social economy, increase the know-how on how digitalization can support organizational efficiency, improve knowledge and capacity, as well as the use of new technologies and digital tools. So this can be achieved by mapping, training, coaching, capacity building, peer learning. That is up to proposal. The deadline for this is the 21st of November, so this month. So if you're interested, get going on that. It's from the Single Market Program. You have the topic ID on the screen and the link in the chat. If we're talking about interregional collaboration, there is the second call for proposals from the Interact Danube Region program. These are opportunities to engage in transnational cooperation projects to foster the regional development. This can be regarding climate change, adaptation, capacities in the region, water and sediment management, biodiversity, labor market, education, training, culture, and sustainable tourism, and territorial macro regional governance. So maybe there are also some connection points here to what was discussed today. And the deadline for this is the 29th of March next year. And you see the link here on the screen, in the slide, and in the chat to find out more about this. And of course, not to forget, there are also new calls that are published by the Euroclusters. These are funding opportunities for SMEs in the different industrial ecosystems and for innovation solutions, for training, for internationalization, or for the adoption of new technologies and processes. So have a look on the ECCP to find out which are the current open calls with the opportunities for SMEs in the different industrial ecosystems. So I believe there's also several that can be applied to what we discussed today. So have a look at this. All the calls are published on clustercollaboration.eu/open-calls. And it was mentioned also today in the discussion to initiate new collaborations. There's a cluster collaboration lab, which is a workshop to forge new alliances and project consortia to create proposals, for example, in construction, the European Bauhaus, which can be one of the areas to work in. We will have the next one already next week in Vilnius, so this is the last chance to sign up and to join us if you're looking for new projects and partners. And with that, many thanks for everyone. And final words for you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Nina. Yeah, thanks to all the speakers, and thanks to you, all of you, for watching and putting in your questions. This is the latest Clusters collaboration talks from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Be sure to register for those coming up. And keep in mind, you can see that hashtag EU Clusters Talks at the bottom. If there was something you'd like to cast wider on the social nets, please do. This is recorded for playback, and the slides are available on the Cluster Collaboration Platform. So take a look at that if you need more information. The Vera had a very interesting slide presentation. You can look back at that as well. I'm Chris Burns. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.